Hello super friends and welcome to DC TV Talk, and in today's episode we're going to be breaking down and reviewing The Flash, Season 5 Episode 6, otherwise entitled The Icicle Cometh. And before you continue with this review, make sure you've seen the episode as it will be filled with spoilers. So can we just mention how awesome the beginning of this episode was? We have Cicada, who is sat inside of a cafe, restaurant. Oh no, he's in Jitters actually. He's in Jitters, and then we have this woman going through, and it's really focusing on this woman. And then you see Cicada, actually, his lightning bolt dagger, like, flashes. It kind of, you know, like beeps whenever there's a metahuman nearby, and then he goes and attacks her, but then this metahuman brings out these massive like swords out of her hands, and there's this awesome fight between her and Cicada, and to the point where she actually brings down Cicada, but obviously his lightning bolt dagger, after being thrown, can return back to him, and therefore it hits this metahuman in the back. Now, this fight only lasts about a minute, but it was so awesome to see this, like, really grounded fight on The Flash, because you don't normally get that. Like, this was something like you'd expect on Arrow in terms of, like, sword fighting and things. Really intense, really awesome, I loved it. And it showed that Cicada actually does have a bit more to him than just, you know, being a guy with, you know, sort of like this dagger. He can actually fight and handle himself, and I thought that was great, and this does set up some other stuff going on later. So the main storyline going on in this episode is Caitlin trying to find her father, who is of course Thomas Snow, presumed dead, and she brings Barry and Cisco along for the ride. They go to the North Pole and they find this research facility that was owned by Caitlin's mother, which was the last known location of Thomas Snow. And when they get in there, they do actually find him, and he's played by the wonderful actor Kyle Secor. And I have to say, he was great in this episode. I loved his portrayal of this character. I think Thomas Snow overall is very interesting, especially what we find out later about him, which is that he actually had ALS, which he was trying to cure using cryogenics, and this is how he was able to basically freeze the ALS within his system and stop it from spreading throughout his body, and therefore making the condition worse. And I thought this was a good way to explain what was going on with him, why he was so isolated for many years, and why he kept it a secret from Caitlin, and why he wasn't actually able to, you know, be in contact with her, at least at first. Obviously there are some other revelations later on. Now, what I really liked about this as well is that it does finally explain everything going on with him, because obviously while we have that at first, Cisco is very suspicious of Thomas. He's not exactly believing or very you know, objecting to whatever Thomas is saying. And this leads into a further conflict where he basically vibes and goes back to the base and vibes everything and realizes that, oh, you know, this isn't Thomas Snow we're talking to. This is his dual, this is his other personality. This is his other, you know, other persona. So obviously, like Caitlin, who has Caitlin Snow and Killer Frost, Thomas Snow has himself and also Icicle. So this is where Icicle comes into it. And basically you find out that the same experiment that he put on himself, he also put onto Caitlin in order to stop the ALS from spreading, you know, through hereditary, which I thought was really interesting, because one thing we were wondering is, you know, after the end of Season 4, is how did Caitlin become Killer Frost? Because we all thought it was due to Flashpoint, but apparently it's not. So it turns out that Thomas Snow actually did experiments on Caitlin in order to stop the ALS from spreading from him onto Caitlin. And this is how Killer Frost came about. And his dual personality as well of Icicle comes from the same thing. And I thought that was really interesting. Now, I really liked Icicle because one thing that you actually find out is that there's this cure that they're trying to make, which is trying to basically get rid of Icicle and bring out Thomas Snow. But what's actually happening is that Icicle is trying to get this serum, and what's actually happening is that when they take the serum, it'll actually bring Icicle full front and make him basically in charge of the host body, and Thomas Snow will become subjective. And I think that was a really interesting twist that I didn't necessarily see coming, something I thought was rather smart. And this like leads into our final fight, where we basically have all of Team Flash who basically storm this base and storm everything going on with Thomas Snow. And, you know, everyone's there. Nora's there, Barry's there, Ralph's there, Cisco, Caitlin. And as soon as they get into this place, it's at below zero. It's at absolute zero. It's freezing. They cannot move. And obviously this is very negative against Speed Force energy, which basically causes Barry and Nora to completely be battened out of commission. So is Ralph. So is Cisco. Caitlin is the only one who's actually subjected to this, you know, environment and is actually able to sustain what's going on. And she's able to stand up, and this is where we actually see her turn into Killer Frost. Killer Frost actually finally returns in this episode due to what's going on, due to like high emotions, and then she manages to basically stop her father from taking the serum, and he eventually does escape. So we are going to see him later on this season, I assume. He's going to play a bit of a role, which is happy. I'm happy about that because I want to see Caitlyn's story continue throughout this season. I didn't want it to be just one episode. I want Caitlyn's story to be persistent thing throughout the entire season, and given where this episode ended off, that appears to be the case, which I'm very happy about. I think that was great, and now we have Killer Frost back was really interesting, because obviously we thought that Killer Frost was gone due to DeVoe using melting point powers to take the power away. However, it turns out that what he was actually doing was using Brainstorm's power to put a mental block between Caitlyn and Killer Frost. So now, thanks to using Harry's mental device, I can't remember the name of it, but you know, they use that mental device which allows Caitlyn to actually talk to Killer Frost and hopefully build that connection once again, so that Caitlyn will be able to summon Killer Frost as naturally as she was able to for the past couple of seasons. There was also another storyline in this episode with Iris, Nora, and Sherlock, which they are looking for the core, which is the main part of the satellite from the satellite incident in the season 4 finale, which actually struck Cicada, therefore giving him his powers. This was an alright storyline. It was just kind of fluffy. It was just kind of there in the middle. Didn't really do much. Obviously, I think this is something they're going to explore a little bit later on, especially in the next episode, which appears to be our Cicada backstory episode. So we should get maybe a bit more explanation, a bit more development with Cicada in next week's episode of The Flash. But for this, it was basically just set up, which is fine. It does show Iris and Nora bonding. Iris wanting to spend a lot more time with Nora, Nora wanting to spend a lot more time with Iris, respectively. And we got to see them basically get a bit closer, you know, spending a bit more time together, bonding, actually getting to be a bit more friendly and a lot more on better terms than what they've been all season, which was nice to see. And also we got to get a bit of a throwback to episode 16 of last season when Iris was a speedster to give Nora some help. That was quite good as well. I appreciated that. Although I didn't particularly like that episode, it was nice that, you know, Iris was able to give some advice in that arena. Also, Sherlock, very funny in this episode. Great. I loved when he was just sat there singing and then talking about how his bowels have been backed up like a traffic jam. Great line. You know, Tom Cavanaugh continues to be just an absolute treasure on this show. No matter what role he plays, he's just brilliant. So Sherlock was great, and I liked the bonding between Iris and Nora. And the other storyline going on in this episode was between Ralph and Cecile. Now, this was strange to me. This was very, very strange. I think the two, you know, I think Hartley Sawyer and Danielle Nicolette did a great job together. I think they were a really good pairing. Very odd pairing, but I liked it. Especially because when you, even visually, Hartley Sawyer is so much taller than Danielle Nicolette. Like, it's quite a funny visual to see. But their pairing was really good. And I thought that them two together played off each other very well. However, this screamed very forced to me because basically Ralph goes to the West House to try and get Joe to help him with this situation, but Joe, obviously with Jesse L. Martin being gone from the show, Joe is not there, so he basically runs into Cecile, and Cecile ends up helping him instead. And this just came off as, you know, the way that the writers need to make Cecile relevant. They need to use her every single episode because she's a series regular this season, so they need to keep using her, putting her into these storylines, and it felt very forced. It was very over comedic as well. It was very forced in terms of its comedy. This was like, this reminded me of like how season 4 would tackle the situation, especially with Cecile, because she was very over the top, very overly comedic, which she didn't need to be, especially because Cecile's not typically that character. So like, Cecile's a lot more grounded in reality, like Joe, and I feel like this scene would have actually worked a lot better, and this story would have worked a lot better if we would have seen Ralph be the typical funny guy that he normally is, mixed with Cecile as the straightened arrow. I feel like making them both a comedy was quite overly done, and it didn't quite fit as well as I think they were intending it to do. And we also did get a little bit of stuff with Cicada this episode. We do see that he was basically suffering from quite a few different injuries. Obviously, we knew that his lung isn't functioning properly. He has that scar right across his sort of right chest. And we actually find out that while this doctor who he's seeing and is sort of trying to treat him, she actually goes to try and fix up his wounds, and he says, no, it's actually making me stronger. So obviously we don't fully know what's going on with Cicada this season. Obviously, like I say, we will find that out next episode, which appears to be our Cicada episode of the season. But it seems very interesting that Cicada is basically very object to actually getting help and getting healing because, again, it's making him stronger. And we saw that a couple episodes ago when he reaches onto that beam in his house and like crushes it with his bare hands. This guy appears to be pretty strong, but we still don't know what the consequences of that are and how he got that strong. Like I say, we'll hopefully get that revealed within the next episode. But I loved all the stuff with Cicada. They Team Flash actually find out who his daughter is in this, which is going to help him, or help them track who Cicada is. So that's like the next step on the track to spotting Cicada. This seems to be moving along fairly quickly, which does worry me that maybe Cicada is not the main villain of the season, like many have predicted. I would like to see Cicada be the main villain, because I think he has a lot of potential, and I think he's been very interesting this season, but given how quickly this is going along, how quickly they are figuring out who he could be, makes me think that maybe they won't be doing this, and they could be doing that big rogue storyline. And given the fact that Thomas Snow basically went away and is going to be coming back later this season, I assume, maybe they're setting up something else there, like I say, with Thomas Snow leading this new team of rogues. I made a video on that the other day. So I don't really know what's going on with Cicada, but obviously we'll get our big episode on him next week, and hopefully we'll see some more of him. We know he's in the mid-season finale as well. We know there's going to be something big going on with Cicada in that episode too, so we just have to wait and see. But all the stuff going on with Cicada, again, just adds more and more intrigue to him, and I thought he was great in this episode. I think Chris Klein did a great job, and I'm very much excited to see where they take Cicada from here. Overall, I actually thought this was a really good episode of The Flash. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, and I honestly think this could potentially be my favourite episode of the season. I don't know yet. It might be episode 1. It's kind of between 1 and 6. I don't know which episode it is nailed down, but this definitely has the potential to be my favourite episode of the season, which shocks me. I don't even know why that is. I don't know if it's because it was very original Team Flash focused, like it was very Barry, Cisco, and Caitlin, and also because I'm such a huge fan of Caitlin's character. Seeing her be full front here was really good, and I liked her actually having a story. You know, I've been going on about this ever since we've started reporting really on The Flash Season 5, then getting the news that Caitlin would be getting a story, that, you know, I've been really pushing for Caitlin to get a story because I love her character, and you know, maybe that could be what it is, I don't know. But all I'm saying is, I think this was a great episode, I really enjoyed it, potentially my favourite of the season, and I think it was just a really great addition to an already fantastic season so far. But what did you guys think about the Icicle Cometh? Make sure you let me know all your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like, it'll help me out a lot, and share this video with anyone and everyone you know who loves DC TV and get them to join the community. And as always guys, please subscribe for all of your latest content on Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Arrow. And with all that said guys, I hope to see you again in my next video.